Hi, it's me again. Okay, we are finished with house arrest, but I did want to read the acknowledgements because they, I think you should hear them. Okay, so here are the acknowledgements at the end of the book. Here they are. This is one of those circumstances where the acknowledgements word count could easily outnumber the actual word count of the book, but I will endeavor to keep it short. To Amy Joan Paquette, Virginia Ure Wolf, and Tamara Tuller, you brought Timothy and Levi to life. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Thank you. And to everyone at Chronicle, a million high fives for being so darn supportive. I often wonder if I'm the most fortunate author in the whole universe. To Tracy, Annie, and Chris, thank you for your professional expertise. I am amazed and awed every day to people who work in the juvenile justice system and with Child Protective Services. You are heroes. To Sam Mirup, a king among men, a leader among doctors, and the best Tigger impersonator I've ever met. Here's to no more letters of medical necessity. To Anne, Michelle, and Delicia, thank you for your years of loving hard work. When a mother learns she's going to have to share her baby with in-home nurses, it's kind of hard to accept. But you all became part of our family. Thank you for being nothing like Mary. To everyone on our aerodigestive team at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and especially to the nurses in the complex airway ICU and step-down unit, you made a difficult time so much easier. You are amazing, and you saved our lives in more ways than one. There are not enough thanks in the world for Dawn and Carol, Rosemary and Ken, Julie and Chris, Sharon and Adam, all my mamas who circled the wagons when we needed it most, and of course to Amy, who saved me 1,000 times just by making me laugh and making me eat. I love you all more than you can ever know. Big hugs and loving noogies to Sam and Georgia for having been through so much, but with such empathy and triumph. And to Stephen, a fierce and fantastic father. Immeasurable gratitude goes to Dr. Robin T. Cotton, who, after 5 years of complex surgical procedures, including completely reconstructing my son's trachea, said to us, "Thank you for letting me help you," when my son was deemed healthy enough to be released from his care. And to my sweet Isaac, it was a hard road, kid. And you never stopped smiling. And you still haven't. I love you, little dude. With all my heart and then some. Okay, so in these acknowledgements, you probably heard me say Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is where Timothy is trying to talk to Dr. Sawyer so that Levi can go there. So in real life, Dr. Cotton is the doctor who invented surgery called a laryngotracheoplasty. And when my youngest son was little, he had a tracheostomy until he was 2. When we went up to Cincinnati from Texas, and Dr. Cotton performed a laryngotracheoplasty with an anterior graft, which means he took out one of my son's ribs and he used it to reconstruct his trachea. So it was finally wide enough for him to be able to breathe through his nose and his mouth, and so that he didn't need the trach anymore. And Michelle and Delicia, who are in the acknowledgements, they were our nurses. They are kind of all combined together to create the character of Marisol. Michelle was our daytime nurse, who we had most of the time. And then we had Anne on Fridays. And Delicia was our night nurse when we were lucky and could get her. So that was our regular rotation of nurses. There was one summer when we had a nurse who was not very great, and she is the one who Mary is based on, though Mary in the book is worse than the nurse that we had. Let's see. I guess that's probably it. I did a lot of research on the juvenile justice system in Texas, because that's where I live, and I wanted to know if a kid was on probation and he stole a car and he hit a bunch of cars and all that, but he was doing it to save someone's life, what might that look like in the justice system in Texas? And really the answer to that I found through my research was that it depends on the county that you live in. So a lot of people get mad at me when they get to the end of this book because Timothy goes to juvie, and you know, they're like, I don't understand, like, how in the world this kid would end up in juvie because he saved his brother's life. But the thing is that there are certain counties in Texas that have zero tolerance kind of policies. So if you violate probation, it doesn't matter what the extenuating circumstances are, you will go to juvie. And so that is what I wanted to happen to Timothy, because I wanted to start a discussion with readers about whether those kinds of zero tolerance things are worth it, what they mean, what they do to children, what they do to families, things like that. So I'm glad that it creates a visceral feeling in readers. They get so mad and they email me that it's just really not fair for Timothy to go to juvie after all of that. And they're right, it isn't fair. But things like that happen to real people all the time. So I'm glad that the discussion is being had through this book. I think that there are a lot of other discussions that I wanted this book to instigate, I guess, amongst readers and educators. And one of them is just grown-ups often see kids in a certain light, right? Because as a grown-up, you've met a jillion kids, or as a teacher, you've met a jillion kids, or whatever, and you think that you get a read on them pretty quick. Just like James at the beginning of this book, right? Like James meets Timothy. Timothy has broken the law, and James just thinks he's a screw-up kid, right? And so we see James change through the book, right? Like as he gets to know Timothy as a person, and as he sees these feelings, the emotions that Timothy has, as he sees what's happening in Timothy's life, James begins to figure out, like, wait a second, he's not just this one-dimensional person who's a bad guy, right? Like, he's got a lot of stuff going on. And so that changes James's view, not just of kids, but of privilege and, life and things that happen. And with Mrs. B, I wanted her to be kind of young and naive and really, like, just gonna change the world, and the kind of person who's like, I'm gonna make you talk about your feelings, and you're gonna talk about your feelings, and all your problems will be solved, and it will be because of me, and I've dedicated my life to this, and and I wanted her to be able, I wanted us to see her character have to take a step back and be like, wait a second, I also need to understand these extenuating circumstances in this kid's life. I really need to listen to him, and I need to help him instead of saying that I'm helping him, right? These are archetypes of adults who deal with children, and I wanted their characters to have an arc as well. And I wanted those discussions to happen amongst the adults that read this book too, because we see Timothy, we see how Timothy changes, and we see how complex he is, and it's the same for adults, Okay, I think that kind of wraps up some of the basic ideas behind some of the themes of this. Please always feel free to ask me questions. You can tweet them at me. Like, Twitter's in my backseat. Just tweet them in my backseat. Carrie Ann Holt on Twitter, and you can use the hashtag Team House Arrest, or just hunt me down and ask me, and I'll answer your questions. Okay, now we have to decide, what am I reading next? I will also be open to suggestions on the social medias, so let me know. All right, bye. Wait, be well and stay safe.